Hey everybody, we're going to take a look at the selection and the direct select tool. As you can see, I've got some shapes on here. I've already pre-drawn. And let's look at the tools first. The first one's a selection tool, which is this very first top left-hand one, or if you have it in straight line, it's the very first one. I call it the gray or the black arrow, okay? So when I click on this, it says selection tool. What I'm able to do is select things. I click it, I got it. I click it, I got it. And as you can see, the bounding box tells me that's what I've selected. Can I select two at a time? Of course, or all of them at once? Sure. Left click, drag, I got them all. Now, here's how you tell that you've got everything selected. You'll see a center point in all of your shapes. You have to make sure that center point is there. If the center point is not there, you'll notice that it's not selected. For example, let's put another circle here. Now, if I go ahead and I select, and I use you, so I click and drag. I click and drag. If I go something like this, click and drag, and I only select, as you see that like grayish box, whatever that grayish box touches selects. And as you can see, there's a blue center point here, and there's a blue center point here. These are also highlighted blue too, and this one is black. You see, if I hover over it, you can see it, but it's not selected. So if I move it, it's not moving with it. Okay? So if I want to select them all, click it like this, real easy, and you saw I dragged over all of them. Now, say if I want to select them a different way, I want to be very specific. I can hold, again, the Shift button. If I hold the Shift button, I click once, I click twice, I click a third time. I can click as many things as I want holding down that Shift button. So don't release that Shift button while you're clicking, okay? We can also do the opposite too. Say I don't want this big circle on the bottom, hold the Shift button again, and I can deselect it, but without deselecting these other two. So it works out really, really well, and that's what I like about it. Now, if you watch the Shape Builder tool, you could say I talked about what actually the selection does. Okay, and if we get a little closer here, you'll see on the bounding box we have 8 white boxes. That just helps me manipulate the actual shape itself. Left and right, top and bottom, however you want to do it, or on a diagonal. You'll also see that I hover outside. It becomes kind of like I call it a boomerang or a down arrow, a right arrow. Take it, rotate it. And you can see that there's the actual degrees, and if you wanted to use it, okay? The one I like to do is hold that Shift button down again, and it gives me 45-degree angles. Okay? Very simple. Also with the selection, you'll notice when I click here, you'll see that the selection I have is over here, my width and my height. Now, if you select multiple, it gives you the overall width and height too. Depending on how big you want it, you could select things and then scale things down. Now, another thing with the selection tool is that if I want to move it, you'll see that the white boxes are amongst all of it. So when I move one, it moves them all. Okay? Or I can do something like this. And it works the same way, which I absolutely love. Okay? Once I release, the center points will readjust, so you're in good shape. So don't worry about that. Let's look at the next tool. The next tool is the direct select tool. It's the white arrow. It's a little bit different. And what will happen is, instead of me moving just one side, I can move actually what we call anchors or handles. So let's take a look at this, or actually paths too. So let's take a look at this one first. If I hover over the square, you're going to notice the square turns blue and the word path shows up. The actual square also, or the arrow also has a black dot underneath it. That means I can activate that path. What I mean by that is I can take it, click it, I'm holding down, and notice it turns black, and I'm still holding left. I can move that path. Okay? Notice both sides do it, so I can make a parallelogram. Again, I can do this side too. If I hover here, bam, there's my path. Turns black, it's activated. I can move it too. And I can flip it backwards and forwards. Yeah, I can do almost anything with it. It's pretty neat, actually. So I absolutely love that, on how that works. Now, let's go to the edge. Okay? Just going to click over to the edge. And you're going to see it says path again. But if I get closer to the corner, because as you know, the more we get into this, we're going to talk about the pen tool too. These shapes are made of points. and literally a point, as you can see, is anchor. They call it an anchor, and that point connects to that one, connects to that one, connects to that one to create the shape. Well, that point, I can take it, or the anchor, I can click it. Now notice it's not a black square underneath the arrow, but a white one, so I'm on an anchor. I click, again, the arrow turns black, I activated it, and I can move just the point. So I can do things that are in perspective. Let's come down here to this one. Maybe now notice this is the side of a wall. Here's the front of the wall. You're looking down this long alley. And we can do things like that. And we can do all kinds. Or I can bring it way in like this and make this really kind of cool shape. Okay, and that's what that direct selection is. But now let's take a look at the circle. The circle's a little different. Let me get rid of this square. Bring the circle up. It has curves. Now, it still does the path, direct selection tool. I come here, notice it says the path. I take it, and I can move it. But you're going to see that's a curve, and you're going to see these peculiar kind of like lines coming out of the points. That is totally normal. We'll get to that in a minute. But notice I can grab a point, or I can grab a path, and I can move it just like I did with the square. Let's come to an actual anchor. As you'll see, it's a path. Go along, boom, there's an anchor. As you can see, it gives me my XY axis where it's located on the page. But we have our anchor, but if I click it now, you're going to see it has these. Now these are handles. We'll do handles just basic for right now. We'll get more into handles when we use the pen tool in our next project. But for right now, we're just going to show the basics of what a handle does. The handle actually works, if I'm working on this handle, it's going to work this curve here. If I work with this handle, it's going to work this curve here from this point to this point. So I drag it out. Notice you'll see the curve change. You can see how it goes up and over now rather than going back. So I'm going to come back here, just right there. Or I can take one, and you notice I can move it down. The opposite side goes up. It's like a teeter-totter. When one goes one direction, the other goes another. Now, for the people that are advanced students, I know I can manipulate that, but for right now, my basic students, this is what we're looking for. I can manipulate that actual curve. And notice it's manipulating both because this one's going high, so this curve got a little different, and this one went low, so it went a little bit lower like this. So there's always an action and a reaction. Now again, if I pull it out, that's just singular. But if I rotate, they work in conjunction. Now I can pull, and I can make it even worse. Or I can bring it really close to the actual point itself. Let's bring this one in. Let's grab that anchor. And notice I kind of made a point there. Now, there's all kinds of handles. So wherever there's a point, and it's a curve, it's going to be handles. And that's how we use a direct selection tool and a selection tool. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll talk soon.